So good morning everyone. I am Mahesh Babu AK. I am from Samsung India Electronics Private Limited from Samsung Research Institute Delhi. Just a brief introduction about myself. I've been working in this IT industry for almost 22 years. I've been working in various roles and in most recent times I've been working on advanced research projects with university collaboration with various different IITs, and also I do lectures as a visiting faculty in various different IITs on IoT and artificial intelligence. So this session is going to be related to IoT, OCF and IoTVT. I started doing IoT sessions almost 5 years before. Initially I started within Samsung, then I've been doing these sessions in various different IITs. So this is one of the more wider forum apart from just doing it within different IITs. So I'm sure you've already been through quite a lot of at least 3 to 4 days now, 3 days of sessions on IoT. I hope this will be an enriching session apart from something little different from what probably you would have learned earlier. So I'm going to kind of give a industry perspective to IoT. We'll start with a little bit of introduction related to IoT and what is essential with respect to why OCF and IoTVT, and then we'll move on to discussing OCF and IoTVT specifically. Okay. So you can ask me questions. If you have any questions, you can ask me during the session, and I'll also at every logical point I'll myself stop over and then request for any clarifications. If you have, you can always approach me, okay, even during the session or after the session also. Yeah, so let's get started. Just to give, so we'll just cover a little bit of background on IoT. So IoT has kind of various different buzzwords. So kind of how do you actually demystify IoT, right? People, when IoT started, the people started calling it as Internet of Everything, Web of Things, or anything related to machine. If you see all these terminologies, somewhere or the other, it does relate to IoT. But what is really IoT? We'll look at that. So, for example, Internet of Everything was, Cisco actually came up with Internet of Everything. Then there's Web of Things was from W3C. So by going by the definition of IoT, it actually deals with 3 different aspects. One is about the connection, which relates to the study of various different communication protocols, and then the things, which relates to the sensors and actuators. So if you consider sensors and actuators, it will be like if you were to have a car and the steering would or the brake would become the actuator, and the sensors would be probably you would have sensors to gauge the distance between 2 cars or something, right? So those become the sensors, right? Or even the power steering, because how it's going to actually sense it. So the next is non-operation by humans related to provisioning and specifically autonomous operations, and also whole lot of other things which is transversal, like security, and including discovery, presence, provisioning, and including identity, authentication, authorization, and also importantly interoperability. So we'll focus on the interoperability aspect specifically with respect to OCF and IoTVT. So why it is also so very important. Okay. So moving on. These are the 2 definitions from Gartner and Wikipedia. What you see. So this is just available over the internet. You can look at it. So what is important is everything what we talk about IoT, we would talk about it or learn about it or work with it with respect to three different perspectives. One is identification, which would deal with whether it's discovering or presence. So the other part is connection, and then the third part is communication, right? So everything, most of what we are going to work with IoT will be related to one of these three. So IoT, you can look at as a new dimension. So a new dimension being any things connection. So we have always had earlier any time connection and any place connection. So any time connection would be whether it's day or night or outdoors or indoors, or whether you're on the move, and any place connection, whether again outdoor or indoor, or is it at the PC or something. There is a a very good white paper which was created by ITU back in 2005. So there it was defined that this we can look at IoT as a new dimension. So new dimension being pretty much importantly the machine to machine communication, apart from the human to human communication or human to machine communication. So importantly the machine to machine communication or things to things communication. So why IoT, right? So importantly, like if you look at across the world, we might have 4+ billion connected people. Then the revenue opportunity is almost 4 trillion revenue opportunity, 25+ billion apps, and 25+ billion embedded intelligence systems, and 50 million GBs of data, which is generated by IoT. So why it is so important is that the huge opportunity it presents. IoT is one of the two very disruptive technologies as such, apart from deep learning AI. So and both are also connected. We'll look at that also in some sense. So this is the IoT value proposition. So IoT opportunity is valued about 14.4 trillion globally by 2020. So we're already in 2020, but actually these numbers were the earlier projections. These numbers are actually kind of not met, and there are reasons for that. Reasons being a whole lot of issues with interoperability, a whole lot of issues with the entire ecosystem being very heterogeneous and diverse. Because of that, there is completely segmented market is there. Okay, and if you look at IoT market opportunity within India itself, it's almost 300-400 billion by 2020, and there will be almost 26 billion devices. So if you consider as of today, there will be about on an average for each person there is about 5 devices. So that's the average. If you take the top 10%, each person would have almost more than 20 to 25 different devices. So there are more other numbers. You can look at it later. So this is another perspective to this. Almost 1.9 trillion revenue across various different sectors. The healthcare and the manufacturing being the biggest. So if you look at there, if you were to look at actually having applications, IoT applications, developed. So these are the bigger sectors. So it doesn't mean that the other sectors are not there, but it's just spread across the entire spectrum. This is the IoT stack vertical. This is a kind of an architecture diagram which I've come up with myself. So if you look at everything, every layer, if you look at it from right from sensors, devices to all the way to IoT-based solutions which you would build, is kind of addressed here. And if you see security, privacy, and interoperability are cross-cutting concerns across the the layers. So if you look at the sensors, so the one here you see is actually a Spider. It's called Spider. It's used for calibrating smart TVs or basically television, color calibration of televisions. So basically you have a whole lot of sensors, and then the sensors are connected to various different devices. So if you look at various different verticals and the domains, the sensors and devices obviously they are quite heterogeneous, and as we move up the layer, it can actually become a little bit more common. And I also work with Bureau of Indian Standards defining IoT reference architecture, and also for smart cities reference architecture. With that, so basically it actually forms an hourglass structure. So being the bottom parts being the sensors and devices which are completely heterogeneous, and these other parts can actually be made into a common platform or a common framework. Then the top part is not so heterogeneous, kind of homogeneous, depending on which particular vertical, which particular segment of applications so you would be addressing, right? So basically the structure would become an hourglass architecture.
Since you mentioned that there are almost 26 billion devices with almost 5 devices per person, except for the cell phone, why am I not seeing anything around me? Am I missing out? What am I not seeing? Why am I not seeing 5 devices, 6 devices around me? I'm in a city. Why am I not seeing those?
Okay, actually you can see cell phone as kind of one of the device which almost has more than 16 or even almost 20 sensors. But then if you look at Internet of Things, it's all about bringing compute and intelligence onto the kind of the device. So you might have very small devices, like it might be a sensor embedded in a shoes, or it could be a sensor embedded in your textile or something.
What I'm saying is, as a normal person, if IoTs become so prevalent and there are so many devices, why am I not seeing all these devices except for my cell phone? I don't have smart shoes. There are no sensors in my clothes. Where are those? And why, why do we not normally get to see if it is so prevalent? If it is so prevalent, almost all of us should be having it the way we have a cell phone.
Yeah, so if you see, cell phone is a kind of a multi-utility device, just like you have your laptop or PCs. So if you see, that is actually getting extended to a smartwatch, which also has a display. So there, if you in future, what happens is whatever kind of functionality which the existing products were to provide, like for example, you have a T-shirt, normal T-shirt which just functions as it is. But if that has to become smart, then you would actually add sensors or something into that. So yeah, so what I'm trying to come to is that conclusion is that this is actually slowly progressing towards making existing ecosystem of the environments smarter with the use of sensors and various different devices. So did I answer the question or?
Not really. I understand the concept. We've all known enough about it. I'm just trying to figure out why is it still not in our lives as yet, as prevalent as it is expected.
Yeah, so that is one of the answers is interoperability also, and the heterogeneity of various different things, like everything including the communication protocol and the complexity also. So if you see, if you have to actually create a IoT application end to end, you need to actually kind of address everything, right? So we do not have, so this is kind of really revolutionary. So we'll also briefly look at industrial Internet of Things, which is evolutionary versus this revolutionary, meaning you have to actually change the way things are and make it smarter. So that takes a while, and whole lot of issues with respect to interoperability and the heterogeneity which comes in and the complexity. So we look at the interoperability aspect. Should I answer the question? So IoT protocols and platforms, if you see, the earliest ones were Xylee and ThingsWorks was also there. SmartThings and IoTVT is something which Samsung actually bought some SmartThings. IoTVT is an open source reference implementation of OCF. And if you see, the various different protocols are there. Everything from for a constrained environment to versus all kind of different connectivity. Even if you look at the connectivity itself, whether it's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Bluetooth Light Edition, or wireless, or satellite communication, coaxial or optical, whatever, right? So everything is there, and then you have a whole lot of so what do you actually do with an IoT application as such? So you will have to actually get the data out of the sensors and be able to process and make some intelligent inferences out of it. So that's where the cloud and big data analytics comes in. So where you actually do some kind of historical processing and then do some prescriptive or predictive analytics. And then we have a whole lot of IoT based solutions for various different sectors, everything from smart home, smart business, smart buildings, smart cities, whatever, right? So that list is endless. So typically, if anybody were to start working on IoT, so either you would actually work on some of these or a few of these different layers, and there are already platforms and frameworks created by pretty much every other company, and that's the whole problem we have with respect to interoperability and the whole divide of various different ecosystem around IoT. So this is another perspective of IoT landscape. So the key different aspect to this is that you have platform enablement and horizontals versus application verticals, and then the different building blocks here. So this is just an example of all various different companies which are there working on different parts of IoT. And then this is the IoT protocol landscape. Right from the same diagram what we saw, a different view of that, right from sensors, devices to various different connectivity. If you look at OBD to onboard diagnostics for automotive, or the regular RJ45 connectivity we have, then various different types of connectivity protocols, then transport protocols. So the shift from IPv4 to IPv6 is also significant, because the important aspect being that with so many billions of things coming in, we need to actually uniquely identify each and every thing in the space. So IPv6 almost provides 340 decillion addressability, quite huge. And then so various different protocols, application or communication layer, application layer protocols as such. So significant ones being the CoAP, Constrained Application Protocol, and MQTT things. So which are more specific to IoT and constrained environments. And then we have the whole lot of data aggregation, data processing and aggregation. Whether you work with something like Kafka for it's a message ingestion pipeline which can be scaled very easily. So it can actually give with scale, it can actually give a very efficient message ingestion or logging mechanism, almost in the order of tens of milliseconds. And then we have a whole lot of data storage and retrieval, different types of databases, including Hadoop, which can be parallelized. And then and also business models, whether it's a cloud with on-demand, on-premise, open, closed, all different business models are there. And then we have a whole lot of business apps. So what actually you do with the data which you collect from sensors. So the main important thing is to actually make some meaning out of it, extract information, derive knowledge, and then have some inference done on the data. Otherwise, whatever data we collect out of the sensors and from the devices is actually useless. So then we have a whole lot of different applications. So including provisioning, device management and provisioning, and also a whole different business process which enable the entire IoT application.
Is there any standardization? I mean, I'm just trying to compare this to Zigbee as an example. Zigbee was also based on a consortium. they standardized on
The 802.15.4 as far as the initial layers were concerned, and they left the higher layers open to the the system. Hasn't something like this being done here?
It's been done, so I have. We'll talk about it. Yeah. So the whole thing about OCF is also kind of standardizing it. I have slides for that.
What are the open source software tools which we can use in that IoT devices like Bluetooth, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, or NRF? Any open source tool which we can use for simulation purpose?
Yeah. So this, if you see, there are if you look at the OCF specification and IoTVT itself as one of the reference implementation of OCF, that the entire stack actually and the tools are provided which can be used.
Can you suggest any one or two tools, software tools, which are open source, which we can use readily for simulation of that modules, wireless modules like Bluetooth, Zigbee, Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I mean, so even with you have a whole lot of tools which comes with microcontrollers like Arduino, Studios and other things.
That thing is hardware, sir. I want to simulate on a software for some simulation purpose. Any open source tool is available for that thing? Yes.
Are there any simulators?
For simulation.
If I want to simulate a network, are there any simulators available for IoT? We're not talking about solution, we're talking about the simulation.
Yeah, so in general, there are tools built, by. So we will look at that once we cover with this thing. So this is the proliferation of IoT across various different industries. So everything from defense to every sector what you can think of is there. Energy, consumer electronics, home healthcare, other things. So next is about actually having how do you, if you were to have an IoT, if you were to evolve a thing, how do you actually evolve a thing to be an IoT enabled or Internet of Things? If you were to take a car which is initially it's not connected to anything, so that's the plain car we had earlier, and then connected things happened with GPS direction and Bluetooth phone calls. Then a little bit more capability was added where you could actually it could connect to the internet and download music and videos, what you see in Ola and Uber and things like that, and also fleet tracking. If you see peak of IoT, actually the proper functionality of that, it would be like where you can actually make it autonomous. So autonomous vehicles which drive itself. So that's the end goal where the different things can communicate amongst themselves by themselves and they can coexist, right? So this is actually taken from Harvard Business Review of I think November 2016 issue of the journal. So if you were to take anything and you want to actually evolve and make it into an IoT application, so this is the kind of various different stages it would go through, right? And every stage would probably involve some kind of an innovation. So this is also the reason why it's not just easy to jump from here to there. It has to go kind of progress one at each stage. Again, capabilities of smart connected products. So the just synonymous to the previous slide. So you can actually have different areas categorized as monitoring, control, optimization, autonomy, each actually building on top of the other. So initially, when you collect data, so you would actually have to collect data, monitor, what's going on with it. Then only you can actually be able to effectively control it. Then you would go and enhance it and look at optimizing it. Maybe like allow predictive diagnostics and service and repair. So for example, there is a company called ThyssenKrupp, which is into aviation and for elevators, escalators, and lifts. You would have seen in malls and all. So they actually they have the entire thing. They have implemented the entire stack where they can sense when a particular lift has to undergo maintenance. So it can be actually predicted prior to when the maintenance has to happen. and then the service engineer is notified, so that makes it much more safer, and also it ensures that it's also cost efficient, if you see, and it becomes way more safer. So that's the advantage. Then if you look at the top peak of that, so it's about achieving autonomy. So autonomy being things which can independently function by itself and also communicate with other things, just like autonomous cars. Yeah, basically next thing is about what is actually making IoT possible, right? So the important things which kind of influenced IoT to be successful is about hardware miniaturization, which has happened, and we kind of almost come to the physical limit as such, and there are different architectures which are coming up where you don't have to kind of go through the von Neumann computer architecture as such, where you have a centralized CPU where you can actually do massive parallel processing, and a whole lot of miniaturization is achieved. Okay. Then we have advancements in phase-driven sensor technology. Importantly, low power connectivity technologies. So there could be cases where you could actually have a bridge constructed, right, with a sensor embedded, where right when the bridge is was laid out, and then that can actually measure the vibrations within the bridge, and it can be there for its lifetime. So it actually has to work with a very it should have a very long battery life, or something like a sensor embedded in a shoe. Maybe the lifetime of shoe maybe is like about say 5 years, so it has to function for almost 5 years. So then IP being the key interoperability protocol, because everything based on Internet Protocol has been quite successful, and an extension of that with respect to IPv6, and of course the device's ability to run for longer duration. So at this point I'll stop. So I just want to go over a small video just to kind of summarize what we have seen so far.
What if you never waited at another red light ever again? It's the 100th episode of Forward Thinking. 99 shows ago, I launched this series with a discussion about the Internet of Things. In case you've forgotten, that's a term that describes a world filled with sensors and actuators and robots and computers that are all networked together and able to communicate with even larger networks. Now, in that first episode, I really focused on how the Internet of Things could affect our day-to-day lives in our own homes. Changing them from an elegant area of class to a swinging disco party with no effort whatsoever. But it turns out the Internet of Things is much, much bigger. Let's really think about the potential for a world filled with devices that can detect changing conditions and react so quickly it makes the blink of an eye look like an eternity. You're driving down the street on your way to work, and you're using your car's navigation system to give you turn-by-turn directions to cut down on commute time. Your car is communicating with sensors embedded in the environment, telling it the presence of other cars and bicyclists, even a pedestrian crossing the street 2 blocks ahead. Your car's also in constant communication with the city's traffic system. All of these sensors are working together to give you a smooth commute experience, cutting down on things that would frustrate you and funneling you through the best route, clearing your path of red lights and other delays. Now, doesn't that sound nice? I mean, this is a world that doesn't just react to what you need right now, it anticipates what you're gonna need 5 minutes from now. It's like living a life of serendipity, an endless run of good luck. But it's not good luck, it's the Internet of Things, and it's working overtime on your behalf. But just to be clear, it's not all about you. The Internet of Things is going to enter industries like manufacturing and shipping, making them adaptable and responsive systems and increasing their efficiency. And with increased efficiency comes lower costs. It's an incredible vision of the future. To get there, scientists, engineers, and researchers are going to have to overcome some big challenges. We've talked about spectrum crunch on this show before. There are only so many wireless frequencies we can use, and you can actually hit capacity within any given area. Now, the good news is, most of these devices in the Internet of Things are speaking in very small amounts of data. But when you have millions or potentially even billions of devices talking, it adds up pretty quickly. Then there's the cost. Now, the components in the Internet of Things are still under development. Like sensors, they're pretty expensive, and other elements within the Internet of Things are even more so. So bringing costs down is one of the largest challenges we face today. Personally, I don't think any of these challenges are insurmountable. In fact, in 20 years' time, I think a lot of the things that frustrate us today will be a distant memory. No more traffic jams. No more leaving the grocery store and then realizing you forgot that one ingredient you needed to make dinner. And 20 years from then, I don't know. Do you think maybe good luck will just fade into obscurity? It won't mean anything anymore because that's what our lives will be? Sure hope so. Now, it's no secret that I am an optimist, but I think this is a future that's worth striving toward. And guys, happy 100 episodes. What topic that we've covered already was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. And hey, if you've got a suggestion for a future topic, leave that one in there too. We read every single comment, I promise. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit like, and if you haven't subscribed already, what more do I need to do? I've done 100 of these things. Tell you what, I'll do another 100, but you gotta subscribe. And then, enjoy some of these videos.
So, lot of aspirations of how IoT could help as such mankind. But importantly, I don't know how many of you have seen this movie called WALL-E. If you've seen this movie, see, you have the whole movie. There is a whole lot of robots, and the robots just do all the work, and people are just sitting there and they just grow fat. So maybe this will probably lead to a stage where we don't have to do our real, our day-to-day mundane things, which can be smartly handled by and more efficiently be handled by machines, and then we can focus our energy on to something else, which is better.
So like what are the communication protocols that are currently actually how much progress have we made for the protocols relating to Internet of Vehicles? So I just wanted to know, because there was something related to vehicles that was being shown.
So basically if you see the entire the main biggest problem is about the last mile connectivity as such, where you have the wireless or wireless communication as such, or whether it's Bluetooth wireless or whatever, or near range communication, but rest of it is kind of already available. I'll show another video which actually also addresses that part, but in general kind of all different kinds of protocols are there, but the problem being that nothing is, you can say that it's completely standardized, and there is still lot of issues with interoperability.
For example, 802.11p, so that was being developed for this one Internet of Vehicles, that is dedicatedly for in the I think 5.6 gigahertz bands. Then for example, there are also some progress in 5G, where I mean even 4G supports some part of it, because using device to device and ProSe this one services. But is there what is the future actually? So I just wanted to have a look at it.
So I think if you see the mobility is the future in general, whether it's mobile or in some form of mobility, and then that also brings a whole lot of challenges around that. And with respect to 5G, if you look at high large bandwidth and high
So will we have an integrated actually some system where IOV or like Internet of Things is also integrated in the 5G or specifications itself?
If you see everything from NB-IoT to, I mean, so we'll look at the question later, but yeah, kind of, it's going to be synergized, over a period of time. So yeah, I mean, that's the way it is heading.
Thank you.
So we'll take questions, little later offline. So, okay, so moving on to other things, like what are the innovations influencing the IoT space. So if you look at, so currently we have seen already, working with Raspberry Pis, Arduinos, and then Samsung also has Samsung Arctic chips. So 057, actually it's right now 1510 it's called, but so something like this is actually a size of $250, is the Samsung Arctic Zero, and this is as good as a Raspberry Pi. And then earlier to that there were Wicked Wi-Fi and Wicked and Wicked Smarts, which was Broadcom came up with kind of beacons. So if you want to do retrofit something which is already previously there and you want to somehow have that connectivity enabled, whether it's with a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, so these beacons were useful. So if you look at mobile acts as array of whole lot of array of IoT sensors. So this here, if you see, there are kind of 16, but there are more. Like if you take a fingerprint scanner and even a PPG sensor, it can actually sense your heart rate and stuff. So even, and of course with camera you have face recognition and other things. So what it means is that if you look at this is other thing, like something which is a central device like mobile. If you see, it kind of absorbs all the other related things which existed earlier. For example, the camera is already there, so you don't pretty much need to buy a really good, unless you want a professional camera, you don't need buy a different camera for that. And even, for example, nobody wants to buy a torch nowadays, right? Torch is already part of the mobile. So it's just kind of absorbing everything, and that has become a central device. And mobile is, of course, is going to be the future as such. So if you look at maybe Android or even some of these Samsung mobiles also, or Android mobiles. So if you were to dial *01# I think. *0. I think one of those codes, I think. *01# or something. So basically you get a whole lot of tests which are available on the mobile itself, whether it checks for different colors, or you can actually validate all different sensors which are available in the mobile. *#06# is for the IMEI code. Something else is there for the checking various different tests which you can run on the mobile, right? So challenges and needs in adopting IoT. So these are various different channels and the needs related corresponding needs. So if you see connectivity, we have all kinds of connectivity. So again, this is the question why it's kind of delayed, and somebody else also had this thing, right? Why we have problems in progress of IoT as such. So there is broad variety of wired and wireless standards, and power being critical. Security is another very important aspect. Recently there was a DDoS attack using just the security cameras which are there. They could host kind of flooding onto the DNS, a DDoS attack, and which brought down a whole lot of various different domains, including some of the bigger e-marketplace companies. So security is another very critical aspect that's needs to be addressed. And what are the things which are hindering IoT? So I think this answers your question you are asking. So to some extent, I think. So non-IP based standard technologies resulting in interoperability. So the main thing being there is no standard and reference implementation which is available, which caters to this.
Those guys could do it for Zigbee. They could actually arrive at a standard. Why are we not doing it here? It's up to the industry to do that, right?
Yeah, but still it is still segmented. It's still heterogeneous, right? Zigbee being versus where the one is about the range and limit and where it's applied. So what is a standard for one may not be completely adopted as standard. So again, I'll come to that. It's just not individual standards for each. I'll show that another slide where you have standards for everything as a different standard. But how do you have a internationally accepted standard? That's also another challenge. And also, what can be regionally applied? So those are all the different problems.
What you've written here essentially, what it indicates is that the problem primarily is number one, the heterogeneity in the hardware. The second would be the heterogeneity in the network protocols. So protocols could be, at least the physical MAC layer could be standardized and leave it open the way you do it for Zigbee. That shouldn't be so hard to do.
Yeah, it is being done, but still the problem being that anything which is disruptive, every other big company has already started off. So the market is already kind of somewhat established and segmented. Now, how do you bring all those things together? You need to actually marry or have some kind of convergence or conformance between this. So that's where the people are working on it. So if you see, these were all the various different standards which is there. Everything from Zigbee Alliance to All-Seen and 1M2M. So that's about different protocols versus, and then because these things happen and some companies actually came together to do they thought, okay, let's make it standardized. They came together and started working. So that is one of the things is Open Connectivity Foundation, where almost more than 500 different companies, almost all the major companies are part of OCF, and Industrial Internet Consortium is again for industrial side of it, and All-Seen and Internet of Things Consortium and Thread were the primary ones which has been there from long time, and now it is effective in some sense. So these are all the various different IoT standards which is there. The prominent ones being all the ones which you see as with an I, ITU, ISO, IEC, and IEEE, then IETF. So these are all the international standards. So the important thing is also one is if it's going to be something as accepted as international standard, so then there is wide applicability of this, and once it becomes accepted internationally and applied across the world, so then that is something which finally it's going to be globally accepted, and then things will kind of become concrete and settle down. Otherwise, there can be even regional standards. If you see some of these devices, you have something like a CE certified device, which is for if you see the European region and stuff. So like that. So it can be a standard within a particular local region also, and probably it's relevant to that particular region. So that is also something, and then those standards need to be there should be convergence or conformance between those standards. So next is about some use cases on IoT. So here you see a use case of a smart world, everything from having EV sharing, like smart house and different forms of energy being integrated, a complete ecosystem where, so this is complete scenario what you can look at, where you even in India we have these 100 smart cities which is being there, and actually this is something which was come up for a design for a Spain city, I believe. And there are few research and innovations influencing, IoT. These are some things which were actually kind of there for, about 3 years back, this was kind of research innovation influencing IoT as such, but now you actually see a touchscreen cooktop prototype, where you can actually see a menu on an induction cooktop like this, where you can, create your own recipe. So there is one of LG, one of Samsung, and one of probably Panasonic or something. So like that, you have a touchscreen display embedded into a smart mirror, where if you just get up and go to brush your teeth, you actually can see all your body vitals or something. So if you see, the use of a smart mirror exists as is, but smartness is getting added onto that. So that's the change that's the trend. Right? If you see there is use of a cooktop which was existing prior to that, but some smartness is getting added to that. So that's the that's the kind of trend it's progressing towards. Then you have smart blinds and smart bulb things. Then of course smart watch, smart textile, smart glasses, including Google Glass versus athletic activities. There is also a smart patch, which is going to be kind of this. If you see, this is a little bit more ahead, and there are already people and there are companies working on it, where it's a both combination of electro, bio, and mechanical, you can say, and at least the electronic skin patch is just. So there are already sensors called GSR sensor, galvanic skin sensor. It can actually detect emotions based on sensing the conductivity of the skin and stuff. So then there is smart pills. It can actually remind the patient that the patient has to take tablets on time and stuff. Of course, smart cars are there. So then there is like Domino's actually having a quadcopter to deliver a pizza and stuff. Recently, I think even in India, they are looking at using a quadcopter or for transporting blood, because that is time critical and time essential. So, and also because of all the traffic, maybe there could be a future where patients are airlifted and moved to the hospitals. That's also possible. And then there is a whole lot of military other applications. Okay, so that just completes just kind of the intro leading up to OCF. So we'll just go over one more video at this point.
In just 4 years, by 2020, your business will either be a digital sensation or a digital catastrophe. Every successful business will need to embrace new technologies. The Internet of Things has two components that we call the 2 C's: the connection of everything to the Internet and the collection of large groups of data. This means that your business assets, data, and processes are connected with people and business systems to enable a higher level of possibilities and financial opportunities. The resulting benefits will be guaranteed outcomes or new business offerings for your customers. This is a transformation from the information age to the intelligence age. A simple illustration is the capability for your voice to issue a command through an interface to perform everyday tasks like turning on a light bulb or managing your home or office security system. Service-based businesses will offer digital services through the use of connected devices that will automate processes, streamline employee performance, bring more value to your customers, and provide much stronger data to operate more profitably. We all need to become technologists and product designers. At the Idea People, we will be your first step and the last mile for preparing your business to take advantage of the Internet of Things.
Any questions so far? Then we'll go over Open Connectivity Foundation. So OCF, Open Connectivity Foundation. So we saw that there's a whole lot of problems with various different standards, different protocols, heterogeneity of sensors, devices, and also the various different ecosystems which is around, started by each and every other company. So now, how do you actually make sure everything works, or you have everything is interoperable, right? So Open Connectivity Foundation is an completely open source, and it's a consortium of various different companies coming together and coming up with a standardized specification, right? And this, based on this specification, they have actually created a reference implementation, which is nothing but IoTVT, right? So we'll be looking at OCF and IoTVT in detail. So it's a new community. It's open. Is being important because if it's not open, it also hurts innovation in some sense, and also everything becoming interoperable is the other problem. So which is being addressed. So, and also it intends to get both open source and standard requirements and interest of various different IoT market opportunities for different vertical segments, which is that. So basically it consists of kind of a triad. One is about having a specification. Second is about having a reference implementation of a specification. Then third is actually being able to validate that the specification, the reference implementation, and the validation test suite itself are all in sync, that you can take it and utilize it. And also there is this certification part of it, where a device, a IoT device, is actually certified that it can work the way it is expected to work, right? So just like how a watch or how a bulb or other thing is actually certified, okay, that it meets these particular different quality standards. Every thing in IoT and the underlying protocol and the communication and the overall framework is actually is functional the way it is expected, is what being certified. So there is okay. So that's about kind of OCF and IoTVT being a reference implementation of that. And these are various different specifications available under OCF. Everything from a core framework to security bridging, and we'll talk quite a bit about resources. What are resources with respect to OCF, and also having easy setup, which is available with there are specifications for that. And every device, you can have different device profiles where it is used, depending on where it's used, and and which particular industry or scenario it's used. So why OCF? So all the devices which are connected, we want that to be made interoperable, and the biggest problems being everything from device discovery to connectivity across multiple OSs and platforms. Then there are multiple proposals, various different consortiums, which but there is no single solution which addresses all the the majority of the key requirements. And now we need a industry consolidation around common interoperable approach, and also need a broad industry consortium of companies to be able to create a scalable solution, right? So that is where OCF comes in. So this is kind of a view of the OCF and IoTVT structure. OCF is focused on creating specification and a standard specification, and IoTVT is actually a Linux foundation of a reference implementation based on OCF. So what this also means is that there could be a different reference implementation available which still conforms to OCF, but this being one thing which is existing currently, which is Linux foundation, and this is completely open source based on OCF specification. So if you take communication framework, simple IoT layers model, so transport and communication protocols. So basically, how a person would actually speak the same language, right? If you speak French or English or Chinese or whatever, so you need to be able to understand and interpret between. So the same thing applies to or synonymous to how things need to communicate. So these are the various different blocks. So transport, communication protocols, and then profiles, data and resource models. So we'll look at in detail what we mean by profiles and data and resource models, and also then at the top we have application services.
So here we are referring to communication between there are two sides. What are the two sides?
So communication between what, because they have a similar structure, I can understand.
So yeah, everything what we discussed so far about IoT, thing-to-thing communication,
M2M.
M2M.
T2T, yeah.
Yeah, then if you were to see, this is actually kind of a client server and intermediary. So we'll look at those, roles of what different roles exist and then how they communicate. So basically, each thing which needs to either a producer of a data or a consumer of a data. So these exist and how they interpret or communicate between them. So it's more a little bit more generalized, but okay, we'll look at slides for that. So if you look at it, so let's look at definition of various different things by defining resource of things, so and its properties. So if you were to take a light bulb, it will have it could be having a binary switch like what it existed earlier, versus it could be having a dimming mechanism where you have a a variable control for brightness of the bulb. So it could be in steps of dimming, setting, step, and range for that. And then these are the resource properties, right? Then so basically how a resource is anything which represents a thing's property and what you want to actually change or control those attributes. So it can be it's kind of a key value or a name and a value for that, right? So that exists. And how do you actually do that? So there's something called a RESTful architecture. We'll talk about that. So a device example, if we were to take a light device, so a resource would be like if light were to be a device, then a resource would be associated as you will have a device type which defines the domain, and also whether it's discoverable and various different attributes of whether it's a binary switch or the brightness, right? And also whether it's mandatory and optional is what is defined. Actually, OCF is based on OCF reference OCF architecture is based on RESTful architectural style. What this means is you have a server which exposes various different properties. For example, if you have a light and its brightness or whether it's on or off, so those property values, and then how do you access these values, right? From which is exposed by the server. So that is being a client actually accessing those properties using methods like it could be create, read, update, delete, and notify. So these are just the get, put, post, delete, various different methods which you can use to access the resource values. And this RESTful architecture is already popular with respect to web standards, and the same thing is followed with OCF and IoTVT. there basically you have a originator of the request, and then there is a receiver, and then you get the response back from the the receiver. So basically you have properties exposed as part of, say, a server, and those properties can be accessed by a client by use of various different methods, which could be the Curator methods. This example, I think, clarifies that. So this is the question I think you had, where what are these two entities? It could be one is the client, one other could be the the server of what actually provides the data. So these are the various different deployment models. You can have a OCF client, OCF server, and also an OCF intermediary. So OCF client is something which requests, initiates transaction, requests data from the server, and the server will actually host the resources. Resources being those properties which we talked about, like a light bulb having brightness, other things, and then you can send a response to the OCF client, and OCF server basically sends a response and provides a service to the OCF client. OCF intermediary is something which actually translates the message and enables delivery of message between an OCF client and an OCF server. So let's look at an example of each. So in this case,
difference between the OCF and IoT. Can we say that the OCF is a platform that is being used by the IoT? Or what is that?
OCF is a specification where it says okay, how you should go and which particular way of how you want to communicate with this particular thing, and those things, like, so those are the specifications or the standards defined. So that is
These
OCF.
are standards for IoT.
Standards for IoT, yeah. IoT communicating between devices, and IoTVT is following those standards. How do you actually do the?
Those are defined in OCF.
So what's it?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So in this case, what do you think is? No, actually, it's already specified here. A mobile could actually act as both a client server or an intermediary. Like if you were to have a light bulb, will it be a OCF server or OCF client? Bulb is a client or server. So basically look at it, something which provides the data, something which has the data and provides data is the server, and the one which actually uses the data, maybe like a mobile or something else, becomes the client, right? So bulb becomes a server, yeah. So, but mobile can actually be anything, because you can actually host a client or server, and intermediary would be a gateway in between which can connect all these sensors, actuators, data from that, and also take it to the cloud. So yeah, we are looking at different deployment models and devices. So whether it's like user device versus a service gateway and sensors, actuators. So which one acts as a OCF server or which one acts as a OCF client? So the one which produces data would be the OCF server, and the one which uses the data or consumes the data will be a OCF client, and intermediary will be able to transfer the data. So there is also a complete platform right from the hardware to complete open source platform. If you see hardware, if you see the Arctic 1, 5 and 10 is IoT specific hardware which is produced by Samsung, and OS platform, there is a completely open source or an operating system called Tizen, which has targeting multiple various different profiles. So this is again a completely open source operating system, which is Linux, Linux distribution, version of Linux distribution. So on top of that, you can actually put IoTVT. So IoTVT runs even on other Android or Windows operating systems. So Tizen is a open source OS which can be used along with this, and then you can build whole lot of other IoT cloud and analytics application on top of it.